Hello, guys. Welcome today again with me, your host Pranav Sharma, who is CEO and founder of the Policy Tank, and along with me today, my co-host Ryan. And today we presents our new episode of the Tank Talks, powered by the Policy Tank. And today we have a special guest along with us in our podcast, Miss See Ting. Talking about See Ting, hailing from Singapore, she is the visionary founder of the Kidstarter, a platform dedicated to empowering young minds. Beyond her entrepreneurial journey, she is a published book author and an inspiring facilitator in teaching. With a BSc from the University of Birmingham and an active association with the US Embassy Academy of Women Entrepreneurs, Miss Lisi Ting is committed to driving change and nurturing future leaders. Join us as we dive into insightful conversations that spark innovation and growth. Very, very welcome, Lee, to our podcast today.
Thank you, Pranav, for having me, and thank you, Ryan, for hosting me as well. My pleasure to be here with you all today.
Yeah, same here, same here, Lee. So, talking about the our today's topic is future of education and future of work. When we talk about this topic, future of education and work, I'll, what do you think, Ryan, that when you as a person, as a listener, think about this topic or listen about this topic, what first thought comes into your mind?
I think the first thought will come to my mind is change.
For me, it will be outdated curriculum.
Okay. If I talk about myself, when I actually first heard about this topic, the future of education and future of work, to be very frank, living in India and, thinking from that lens, when, like, as right now we are going ahead and since the time immemorial, we see that, although we have progressed a lot when in terms of, we talk about the regions which are there in India and along, like, the neighboring countries, but then also there are a lot of things to do and implement when it comes to the education part, because whenever something happens we shut down. The very first thing what we shut down is the education institutions. We
Mm,
put a ban on that, oh, this thing is there, this thing is happening, let's not send our kids to the schools, to the colleges. Let's just
mm,
stay back home. But I guess in today's time, as with the changing economies and changing rapid time, we need to stop this thing, so that people should actually focus upon learning, and especially application based learning, so that they can also excel into their lives. So, starting from this topic, I would like to ask, like, on the topic of trends and transformation in education, how has education transformed and adopted over the time? What
yes.
are your thoughts
So,
about that, Lee?
mhm. Yeah. So, thank you again for inviting me to speak on this topic because this is something that is very dear to my heart and something that I'm really passionate about. So,
Yeah.
I would start off by saying that what we are seeing in today's education is a product of the Industrial Revolution. And what we're seeing is there's standardized curriculum, like what Ryan has mentioned, outdated curriculum, right? And it's focusing on teacher-centric instruction, and it's all graded. So what we are seeing today is that we are shifting from an industrial to the information age, where what we are focusing is more towards critical thinking, problem solving, and how do you adapt to the new technology. And it's no longer in the industrial revolution where one size fits all. It's all about personalized learning, about giving that differentiated instruction and customized to the individual learning needs in today's education.
Very well said. Very well said. See, because like a lot of people don't even bother about this thing and don't think from that perspective, but you also like put forward just right now.
And plus, with the rise of artificial intelligence, or rather generative
Mm,
artificial intelligence, it is very easy for the tutor to become afterthought because with AI you can generate so much content,
mm,
information, even in ways to make it very interesting. I think one of
mm,
the very common prompts used nowadays in uh, software like ChatGPT, PyAI, it's
mm,
you can take a complex topic and summarize it in a way that a 5-year-old child can understand. Yeah,
mm,
and admittedly, sometimes it can be done better than a human teacher explaining it, who may have not as much skills to do so. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah,
mm,
you're absolutely right. And in fact, like exactly to the point where right now with ChatGPT, there's so many things that you can just, key in the prompt and it will just generate answers for you. But I think at the end of the day, there are also a lot of like innovative techniques out there in, in today's world. But I think the question that we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day is how do we make learning applicable and relatable to each of the, students?
that's right. So See
Mm,
Ting, if I was a student, let's say maybe 5 years from now, I walk into a
mm,
classroom, right? Or maybe it's
mm.
not even a classroom anymore. How would you um, describe the kind of curriculum that me as a future student would go through in preparing for future challenges?
Mm, that's a great question. So I would think that in 5 years' time, how do you really prepare yourself for the future is to really remain adaptable, be open to learn about new skill sets, that will help you to transition into the future. And I think there is also a rising need to learn what I call a transferable skill set over, focusing on just our academic learning. I think by doing that, it will help you to remain relevant in the changing market as well.
Yeah, I'm speaking from experience. I'm actually pretty frustrated because I mean I won't name the places I went to, but after getting my accreditations, especially
Mm,
in a very accredited certificate heavy society like Singapore, I found
mm,
that those alone were not good enough for me to excel in the workplace. Yeah,
mm,
I realized that a lot of other transferable life skills, like you've mentioned,
mm,
skills like discernment, negotiation, empathy, these are much more important in allowing one to
mm,
ascend the social ladder, the social matrix, rather
mm.
than simply sticking to oh, I know this pool of knowledge, but now it's kind of useless really because AI can easily handle the technical stuff.
Yeah.
So I suppose the human touch would be the more defining factor of who stands out.
Yeah, so I would say that before, or even to a certain extent, as of now, it's all about having the domain knowledge and the technical skills for a specific role, for example. And but as the world evolves, I think what we are looking at is also more on towards more a humanistic value. That's something that AI can't replace. So, and then it goes back to my point of being adaptable, being entrepreneurial in your thinking, in your mindset, as well as being resilient.
Actually, Seating, I would like your opinion on this because one thing I'm noticing now, especially on
Mm,
content creation platforms like YouTube, right?
mm,
Youngsters can just pick up the phone, video themselves talking about a topic, and after a while, they gather enough social clout. So if you see
mm,
where this is going, eventually they become uh, domain experts without having to go through the certification programs that people of our generation would have normally gone through, right?
mm-hmm,
And then in the end, we are seeing them eventually override the established institutions. I mean, in certain areas, when it comes to like
mm, mm,
popularity, people will be saying, "Oh, I can just go to YouTube and learn from this popular YouTuber about this topic," rather than
mm,
going to a school with a boring classroom and a boring textbook. Yeah.
mm.
So how do you see this kind of dynamic uh, evolving in the future?
Yeah, it's a very interesting phenomenon that we are seeing, which is unseen, and unheard, probably, like, unheard of as well. So I think it really goes back to the upcoming generation, which is the Gen Z generation as of now, because this generation are looking at how can they collaborate and co-create a journey together. So I think with these trends that are rising, there is an increasing need to actually involve this youth or this young generation in creating the future of work or the future of education. So like what we discussed earlier at the start is that we need to reform the education. So when we are going through this reform of education, like can we then involve them as part of the to get their views and their opinions about how the education should be reformed.
You've also written a book, Gen Z, the U Inc. Revolution. Yeah.
Mm,
So maybe just name one quality that these Gen Zs have that allow them to perhaps even amass more income and more impact than the previous
mm,
generations before them, even in a
mm.
shorter amount of time as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this generation is fully aware that they have everything at a disposal, to acquire new skills. So they are the tech savvy generation, right? So I would say that, and because they are value driven as well, so they really are not afraid of. And in fact, I would say that in whatever things that they do, it has to connect to their value and their purpose, and that is something that makes them. They would just go boldly out there to basically, so we are seeing that right now. A lot of Gen Zs, what they're doing is they they advocate for a particular cause because that is something that is connecting to their value, to their purpose, and they would just advocate for a campaign. And that's what we are seeing more and more youth are doing so.
So perhaps so we go forward a bit more in time. So in the next 20 years, how would the education space look like then with all these influencers, Gen Z influencers coming to the picture? So I'm thinking, how would these Gen Z influencers collaborate with the older establishments of the past? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Will we be seeing things like universities employing these influencers to be guest speakers or guest lecturers? Yeah.
I think maybe there could be a potential. There could be a potential way, but I think at the end of the day, what we are looking at is also university would no longer be focusing on just academic grade itself. It's on how can we impart skill set. So in terms of if you're just looking at in terms of content creation, yes, we might be perhaps there's a possibility that they will involve Gen Z in terms of content creation, creating content that's relevant for the upcoming generation. But in terms of skill set based learning, I still believe that there will be it is something that as a higher institution should impart and should teach the student.
Now, speaking of content creation, it's also another rabbit hole we can go down into because nowadays there's this thing called nano learning. So basically your TikTok videos, right? Very short form, bite-sized, engaging content that really outshines reading from a long text in a textbook. Yeah. And also the trend of gamification. So, glued to the screen, a lot of screen time, but the kids are just playing the game. And in the process, they also learn certain things, right? Like maybe if it's a historical game, they learn a bit of world history as well. In fact, growing up, I also did play a few games that exposed me to history in a more interesting way compared to how my teachers taught it. Yeah. So how will you see all this merging together with new technology as well? So like gamification, metaverse, AI.
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, we're already seeing some of it in our learning today. So for example, gamification is something that we already started to see. Probably before COVID, we already started to see a lot of in terms of curriculum has been gamified so that it engaged the student. And I would say gamification is particularly effective with young students. And I think as we progress, right, with like what you said with metaverse and all, I think the key is to provide this real world problem solving experience, and also something that is personalized and adaptable for the learners. Now, what do I mean by that is that for example, in terms of the real world problem solving, I think what we need to look at is how can we perhaps collaborate with local businesses or organizations to really develop solutions to the actual problem of needs. And on top of that, in terms of personalized learning, which is something that we talk about earlier in the conversation, is how do we tailor to their specific needs. And in fact, even for experiential learning, and service learning, is how can we make a particular skill sets that students can learn and apply in their daily life. I think that's what is really important.
And like when we also say that that how technology is reshaping job roles and how has they led to the need for upskilling. Because there we see that the integration of educational technology like edtech is increasing nowadays day by day. So what's your point of view on that front when we say that that it is the need of the hour?
In fact, job displacements and job reconfiguration is a primary concern right now. And we actually did survey and statistics among the youth that we interacted with as well. And a lot of them actually expressed their concern and worry that their jobs will be replaced by AI in the future. So it's a genuine and real concern that a lot of people are facing today. And IMF estimated that almost 40% of the jobs will be impacted by AI. So it is almost a given that workers need to be more proficient in the technical and digital skills than ever before. So just as business changes, I think employees has to be adaptable and willing to adopt the mindset changes. As the work practices might change, and because this is critical to grow for them to actually grow with the businesses and with the organization. And so I would say that, from an employer point of view, it's really, we need to ensure that whatever learning, whatever training that we're providing for your employees has to remain practical, relevant, and directly applicable to their role.
Great. And like, so it's just about like this is study because as you have stated that the World Economic Forum has conducted this study. So apart
Mm-hmm.
from World Economic Forum also, is there any
Mm-hmm.
study which has also been done country wise on that, on EdTech especially?
Yes. So in fact, I'll just take an example of where me and Ryan are from, Singapore. So Singapore has the Skills Future initiative, and the initiative is really focusing on, equipping the employees with the relevant skill set so that they can adapt to the change in terms of the skill set that's needed in today's world.
Thank you for answering my question.
In fact, I haven't used up my credits, Brandon. I'm still
Yeah.
waiting for the right course. Yeah, recently they released like I think thousands of more courses for
Mm,
the population to upskill. Yeah, but if there's one concern I'm looking at See Ting and Pranav, the
mm,
thing is that based on the youth that I've talked to, a lot of
mm,
them are also looking at creating their own job. So it's not about finding a job in the future; it's about
yeah.
creating their own flavor, their own
Mm,
style, right? And
mm,
it's so easy to do that nowadays through content creation platforms like YouTube. Yeah, so
mm,
I would like your views on this because I'm sure we have been through the traditional employment phase before. But
mm,
now we are moving into a world where the young kids are already saying, I don't want to work under a boss because my parents are suffering under them. I want to start my
mm,
own business.
mm,
So what's your take on that?
Like my thoughts actually might be very different on that because I'm and from my family because my father works in the bank. So I used to ask him a lot, like when I was a
mm,
kid, that how come you are working in the same organization from last very long time. I
mm,
cannot do that. And when I started doing job, so I used to find that issue that that we work on a different scales. We everyone have a different working style and culture in that way. So
mm,
I was never accustomed to that that environment where there is someone on my head always on the all time to
mm,
instruct me, okay, this you need to do, this you need to do. So I was like, no, I need to do something where I feel, comfortable, I feel cherished, and at the same time, I should be motivated by myself that every morning I should be, power, prepped a lot that yes, I want to go to work. So that's the reason that today we all are sitting and we started the policy tank. So this was the thing.
mm,
And I guess in today's world, also, as the time is changing, the youth has developed this mindset that, okay, if the jobs are not there, that's not an issue. We can create our opportunity. And also, the cherry on the cake is that government is also supporting right now to
mm,
those young starters, young youth who can actually come up on board and provide that job opportunities, create that job creation things for the other people, and those kind of startups, those kind of what you say, um, uh, unicorns are developing in more numbers these days. So I guess that's what I believe, that more and more people should come into that stream who are
mm,
starting and bringing some new innovation, new ideas, and
mm.
that keeps you in market actually.
Yeah, I second to that because I think to answer to your question, right? I think Gen Z, this generation, they are very entrepreneurial, in fact. So they are not afraid of forging their own path. So it's before it's more of like we get a good grades, going to a good university, and get a good job. But when it comes to this generation, if this is not something that I want to pursue, then why do I spend this amount of time to force myself into the job that I don't really enjoy? So to them, again, it's going back to, is this really connected to my purpose and is this aligned with my values? So I think this is the trend, or rather this is the characteristic that we are seeing in this generation.
So moving forward, then it will also be key to empower these young entrepreneurs to take ownership of their own learning journeys, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, any pointers you could give for, let's say, a young person watching this podcast? How would
Mm.
they be able to find their niche and build up from there a strong
Mm.
foundation?
I will start off with this because this is one of the my favorite thing to tell the youth when whenever I'm in one of the session with them is that only you can make you, right? So your unique experience, your unique story, your strengths, your passion is what really differentiate you, right? And that is what differentiate you and I right now as we are talking on this podcast. We have different interests, we have our different strengths and weaknesses, and our passion are different, and that is what makes us unique. So I would think, to really start off by identifying what are your strengths, what are you interested in, and what makes you really excited. And I think that is the key in first exploring and discovering more about yourself, and that will be able to help you to guide you to the next step.
Like in today's time, there are a lot of people, if you see, like you might have seen in your surrounding also, and like there are a lot of speakers who also say these things on the platform of UN, that that equity and inclusion should be there in education and work. We
Mm,
always talk about equity and equality and inclusion, but
mm,
do you really think that it really happens? If not talking about some countries like Japan, Singapore,
mm-hmm,
Malaysia,
mm-hmm,
and some developed nation, like in the first world nation, to be very specific. Do you really see this thing in the second world and third world nation, or even in fourth world nation, where the priority is being given to on the level of equity and inclusion,
mm-hmm,
especially to the youth and women,
mm-hmm,
and how we can integrate that thing into education and work? If you can just
mm-hmm.
put some light on that part.
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, we are seeing more and more countries, whether they're first world, second world, third world, fourth world, there's a growing emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so one of the thing in when it comes to education, one of the disparity that we are seeing is that students who are facing physical or mental disabilities are actually particularly prominent across the countries. And individuals and other form of disparity are, for example, learners who come from low income family as well as from in countries with diverse ethnicities, right? So these are the students who are actually having less access to education. And in fact, so one just to give you one other example is, in recent July, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport in Cambodia, they actually officially launched the Inclusive Education Action Plan 2024 to 2028. And the whole purpose of this is to ensure that every child, including those with disability, have access to quality education. So this is an effort to actually build a more inclusive and equitable society.
And when we talk about the strategies for ensuring equal opportunities for all the students, so
Mm-hmm,
because anyways government is also doing their things what they can do on their part.
mm-hmm,
What do you think, like being a responsible citizen, being a part of the
mm-hmm,
society and living
mm-hmm,
into that society, how we as an educator, how we as an industry expert, and and as a think tank, how we can actually provide that thing along with the government, because government also have some amount of bandwidth. They cannot go at and do things at every place, so they
mm-hmm,
also seek these things based on public private partnership.
mm-hmm.
So how you think that as a as a responsible citizen, we can strategize on that part, and we can ensure that every student can be given that equal opportunity.
Yes, that's a great question. And I like the part where you talk about, government versus us, right? So I would say that if you kind of like look at from the government approach, it's kind of like a top-down approach. But I think to really build accessibility and equitability, it's really to start from ourselves, right? Start from what we can do. I would say I would call it a lot of ground work initiative. What can we do to include more people that who can't typically, receive all this education? So one of the example that I would say is, for example, when it comes to, I would use the examples of the Cambodia's situation. So the children with disability are 3 times less likely to attend school than their peers. So when it comes to this, how then, as individual, how then can we help to remove the barrier? How can we help to bring education to them by providing, resources or bringing, accessibility to them? So I think that is the one thing that we can do, you know, within this is something that is within our control, and it's something we can start off with.
Great. That's it. Thank you for providing this information. And Ryan, if I can ask you the same question from you, because you as a youth coach also keep traveling to a lot of places, to the different parts of world. How do you see this thing as a challenge, and how, because you also interact to a lot of students also, you also being as an youth coach, and also keep traveling to different parts of the world,
Mm.
also are very well connected to those, to the youth, to the students. So how you see these this thing as a challenge, and what's the solution you feel that which can be provided to the students where they don't feel that that they're not being given the equal opportunity?
Mm. I find one very important factor is the family background that they
Mm.
grew up in. I've met two kids from the UK. I've coached them for a while, and they are so bright for their age. They are even best-selling authors at the age of, I think, 9, 11, 12, around there. Can you believe it or not? Yeah, and the thing is because they have very supportive parents.
Mm.
Yeah, and also the school that they go to, if I'm not wrong, it's a pretty open-minded school. So they really look
Mm.
at the what See Ting said, the transferable skills,
Mm.
long-term thinking, very strategic, which is really much better than the industrial copy-paste cookie-cutter system. Yeah, so in that sense, they already have a head start. And the one word I would like to bring to mind is mindset, basically.
Mm.
Imagine you start very early on with the right mindset, a growth mindset, for example, you can really exponentially increase your income, your impact, yeah, than say someone who's 30 years old but has gone through the traditional system. They don't have that awareness yet. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. And in fact, it's quite encouraging, Pranav, to hear our Prime Minister in Singapore say to our young people, like, we will support you in chasing your rainbow.
Yeah.
Right? We will, yeah, we will raise your fullest potential and cheer you every step of the way. That was his message to the young people. Yeah. And I think I'll let
Yeah.
See Ting elaborate also on the different policies that have been launched in Singapore, like maybe Forward SG, the education program. Yeah, See Ting, please go ahead and elaborate on these exciting initiatives.
Yeah, no, I'll just
Mhm.
touch on like a few. So it's
Mm.
interesting because I was actually at the the youth policy forum that happened
Mm.
just 3 weeks ago, and it was really interesting and it's really empowering to see that so many youth are actually at the event to really co-create solutions to design a future that they want. So and that is really what I see, how the future of education and how the future of work should be. It's about co-creating, collaborating, to provide a more inclusive and more effective and and efficient workforce. That's really what I see. And so to come back to your question, Ryan, on the initiative, I think in Singapore there is this digital literacy and skills development. In the area of digital literacy and skills development, the government has actually launched this digital literacy and education master plan that focuses on equipping students with the digital skill sets through initiative, like computational thinking as part of the national curriculum as well. And the reason behind on doing all this is really to make sure that students remain relevant with the changing world, right? So whatever that we learn in school is something that we can apply in the future, as we step into the workforce. So that is what I would call like is more on the skill sets base of training.
And I'd like to add on also that Singapore also has its national AI strategy. So Pranav, you may
Mm.
want to check this out. National AI strategy 2.0, not 1.0, 2.0, second one really. Yeah. And even MOE also, the Ministry of Education has advocated the enhanced 21st century skills. So not 21st
Mm.
century skills, enhanced 21st century skills. So I think that's the direction that we are going in terms of policy to really galvanize the nation. Yeah, because for Singapore, our talent is really our greatest asset. Yeah, so
Mm.
we want to
Yes.
really invest heavily in this. Yeah.
And I also like
No.
how the government is also shifting towards a competency based learning. So, which I think that is really a great initiative in terms of like really focusing on the competencies development rather than purely focusing on academic learning.
Yeah, that thing is very much important, and yeah, thank you, Ryan and DC, to actually emphasizing on that part and telling about all these things what is right now happening in Singapore and what government is actually doing on the lines of policies. And it's actually very good because by taking the same inspiration, like like India is also like following up on that path, like because like by doing working on this AI India AI mission, by skilling the the upcoming youth, and the developing that data labs and AI labs, so that and starting that thing from the school level itself by utter tinkering labs, so that students can also learn coding, and at the same time they can also be introduced with AI. So I guess that's the thing which we as a global south, the countries which are there in global south are doing. And I guess on that front, I also look up to Singapore and the government of Singapore to a very big extent. Right? and I very much appreciate also that work what they are doing.
And also, your Prime Minister Modi, recently visited Singapore as well, right? So
Yeah,
really looking forward to the synergies that are going to happen in the future between both our countries. Mm.
yeah. Because the India's India AI Innovation Center, AIAIC, will which will be a leading academic institution, also ensuring streamlined implementation and retention of top research talents by providing funding approved by the cabinet, will
Mhm.
enable IAIC to spearhead the development and deployment of fundamental model with a specific emphasis on indigenous large multimodal models, so like LMMs. So in that way, so and these things will be applied and implemented within IITs and IIMs along with the grade B and grade C schools, so that everyone should can get the same amount of education, the same level of education throughout the India. So this is what our Prime Minister's vision is also there, to make our youth independent. And I guess these type of government initiatives are very much important, so that these things also give boost to the youth and to the job market also, because everything is related at the end of the day when we talk about that, economy or education and other sectors like the allied sectors like agriculture. Because AI right now in agriculture is also playing a very big role in today's time, when we are seeing the climate changes happening. So the hydroponics, aquaponics kind of things are coming into picture. Like drone farming has already been introduced in India. So I guess these things actually fascinate a lot, and the youth, especially in robotics, and coming from the Southeast Asia, are mind-boggling. Like their talent is top notch. So I look, I actually admire that also. So cheer up to you guys also on that part.
Oh, thank you. But well, we ultimately are looking for collaboration, right? Because that is what will elevate humanity as a whole.
Mm.
Yeah, we see what competitiveness has already done. You know, so I think we have to take the other route already. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Because I guess uh, Brazil is also there on that front, where they talk about connected policies, which seeks to the expanded access to digital technology in schools and particularly in underserved regions, to ensure that all students benefits from digital learning tools.
So with this in mind, See Ting, I'd like to ask you,
Mm.
what do you think could be a few jobs of the future that do not exist today but could exist in maybe a decade from now? Yeah.
Well, I think this is the toughest question of the day. How would the future of job look like? I would think that I think that the generic way to put it across is it would be something that it still requires a lot of creative thinking, a lot
Mm.
of problem solving, and a lot of empathy as well. So something that requires you to feel, and to think. Because basically, I would think that anything that AI can't do, that AI can replace, is what is really needed in the future.
Mm. Okay, so time to get ready to become an advanced elderly caretaker. Yeah, because
In fact,
we are facing an aging population, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And from this, coming on to a different question altogether. I want to ask you this thing to both of you,
Mm,
and you both of you can answer on that part. That when we talk about the role of collaboration
mm.
between educational institutions, business, and government, like already that collaboration is happening on the level of government. But how we are seeing that collaboration on the lines of education institutions and business, so that you know. It is very much also crucial for shaping the future of education and work with in other countries also, and how we are making sure that thing can happen. So what's your perspective on that, and how we can do that and implement that collaboration thing happening apart from the government on the lines of education and corporate, so that everyone can get that uh, that that learning, that quality from other country, who's actually is good at one thing, and how we can do that comparative analysis, and develop that comparative analysis also into our students.
So I would think that in terms of so just to get your question right, is that basically is that in talking about the importance of the collaboration between education institution and as well as businesses, right? So I think that in terms of this, I call it collaboration slash partnership. It's really critical, because like earlier I talked about real world problem solving, and that is the first step of basically bringing education institution and businesses together. And this partnership is critical because it ensures that there is this dynamic exchange of ideas, resources, and expertise. It goes back to what we started off talking about, updated curriculum, because students would need to acquire the competencies that are demanded by the industry, right? So that our curriculum, we can align the curriculum with the industry needs as well. So I think it is really important to create this ecosystem where, in fact, government, education institution, as well as companies, businesses are all coming together to basically shape the upskilling agenda.
And to build up from
And
See Ting's point about solving real world problems, I feel that entrepreneurial education will be the base starting point already. Yeah, so not so much focused on the theoretical, memorize this idiom or
Yeah.
memorize this mathematical equation, because AI can efficiently do that for us and faster as well,
Yeah.
right? So the thing is, how do we creatively apply these applications in a business setting so that we can create the income and the impact that is required in pursuit of the SDGs, for example?
Yeah, absolutely.
and along with that, can you also highlight some of the successful policies from around the world that support the integration of technology in education?
Yeah, so I can start off by so earlier you mentioned about, it's actually one of the initiatives that I would like to bring up. It's with the connected policy by Brazil. But another one that I also like to bring up is the one that is from Japan. So the Japan education technology strategy actually promotes the use of AI and other advanced technologies to create adaptive learning environments to enhance the educational outcomes. And on top of that, in Sweden, the Swedish National School Digitization Strategy has also promoted, the collaboration between school, technology companies, and other stakeholders to really integrate these digital tools and resources into the education. And this actually brings back to what we discussed earlier about, the need of integrating the three parties together.
And like in regards to this, in addition to it, like what are the key policies change that you believe are necessary to prepare students and workers for the future challenges?
Yeah, so one thing I would definitely think is in terms of the collaboration between industry as well with the institution. And other than that, I would think that, there should be a policy in helping to facilitate the labor market transition. Because the fact is, in by 2030, a lot of us, according to one of the statistics, in fact, every 16 workers may have to change occupation by 2030. So that just provides us an indication on we will all have to go through the transition in terms of our jobs. So I think this policy is needed because it then help the labor to actually improve their employability as well by learning new skills. So it's something that it will work hand in hand with the upskilling agenda as well.
When you say that that we will be needing that employee and labor market transition, because the transition will be happening in the future. So
Mhm.
on what level we can say this thing, that although I know this thing also, that yes, as the time is coming up, we will be needing that, everyone will be needing that, multitasking things, and they need to
Mm,
upgrade themselves. But
mm.
how we see that, like how you want to say this thing, that there will be a transition, and they, and the policies will need to be regulated on that front, and what level of transition can be there?
When it comes to when it comes to the future workforce that I talk about, so by 2030, which is just in 6 years' times, right? So a lot of us might be seeing new jobs that doesn't exist today, right? So and therefore, as human who are living right now in different different parts of the world, we will force to actually adapt, and we have to learn whatever the new job requires to be, right? So in fact, I would think that in by 2030, a lot of jobs will be automated. A lot of jobs will be taken care of by AI. So in terms of what the exact skill set that we will need to help with the transition, I would think, like, for example, some of the key characteristics would be like, how do you differentiate yourself with a robot, for example, right? So personal branding is one. How do you create your network? So networking is one. How do you think creatively? How do you think, how do you lead a team? How do you communicate? And how do you improve your social skills? Because these are all what robot can do, right? So I would think that these would be the key components that the employees will need to equip as they prepare to transition into the future.
So you mean to say that the things which are related to 14 basic employability principles. So we need to and everyone need to work on that part when it comes to storytelling or critical thinking and leadership skills and all. Right? Correct me if I'm correct.
Yeah, I would think that those are the base, the foundational keys, the skill set that you will need to really, because these are all what makes us human, right? If not, we will be machines, we will be robot, right? And there's one thing that I talked about earlier, which is on empathy, and I think this is really the key that is going to drive, the future economy, because it's how we feel. How are we able to relate to other people?
Yeah, to be honest, I would rather have a boss who is not that smart but can relate very well socially with
Mm,
people rather than a very smart person but he's an upstart. Like
mm,
really, it just ruins your day the moment you step in the office. Yeah, I wouldn't like that. Mm.
True, that's very true. Because I guess, in today's time when we also see students, they struggle a lot with issues like, panic attack, anxiety,
mm-hmm,
mental
mm-hmm,
health issues, and, they see that emotional and mental support, which they are
mm,
not actually getting in today's time, not even from their family's side, not
mm.
at the workplace. So that you cannot even expect also. So is that is also a disconnect, which, needs to be fulfilled.
Yeah, so that's why I feel that in this kind of information age also, the young people must have this discernment to really see
Mm,
through the noise because there's just so much content out there. And
yeah.
I think scrolling a lot on YouTube, even doom scrolling, right, on social media, I find that looking back, I've come across a lot of information that I don't actually, doesn't really empower my life. It's just
Mm,
the content creator, sadly, the content creator just taking my attention so that they can monetize it for themselves. Yeah, I don't really get the value. Yeah, I'm not sure if you all have experienced that before.
of course, there are a lot of things that I didn't plan to know, but I just learned along the way because I chanced
Mm,
upon the YouTube videos, the ads and stuff.
mm,
Even though it is not required, but we consume that content because as we are scrolling up, we see that content when it stuck us also to that
Mm,
particular video, to that particular reel, even if we don't want to see it, if it even
mm,
if it is not of our use, but then also we consume it. That's what actually happening, and especially I see this thing, especially in the Gen Zs and the Alpha generation, that like they are very small in the age, but then also they have the devices, that the
mm,
tabs, phones, and they are scrolling like anything on Instagram, on YouTube, on Snapchat, and those things were not there in our time when we were a very small kid, and that is also impacting a lot when that fake world which is there, that digital world, you don't even know them personally, and then also you feel very emotional, you get very connected to them, and then when something happens, we see the cases like suicides and all, and I guess that is very disheartening.
mm,
mm. Yeah, so these are just one of the many complex problems that we'll have to face, you see. And I
mm.
cannot die without looking at the young people and saying, hey, no, I want to help you out with this, you know.
So that's the important thing. And then I guess this thing, Ryan, I want to ask you that how can individuals and organizations effectively advocate for sustainable education practices in their communities?
I suppose it requires really helping the kid out from young because if I'm not wrong, according to psychology, I think 0 to 7 years old, the kid really has no filter. So whatever they take in, right,
Mm,
they will perceive it as real. So we have to be very cautious how no, we can't just throw the iPad or the device to the kid and then let them
mm,
consume whatever the algorithm throws at them. Because
mm,
algorithm, if I'm not wrong, is just behind it is the human who wants to monetize, right?
mm,
And I have come across examples of YouTubers. I mean, I won't mention them, but in a way, they um, exploit the kid's psychology,
mm,
yeah, to continue watching their videos, to even get them to engage in gambling. Like, for example, buy my stuff, and then maybe you get a chance to win this, like, even more grand item.
mm,
Yeah, YouTubers do that. So this is where they're already teaching the kids gambling, but in a very subtle way.
mm,
Yeah,
mm,
another example, would be the kid is watching a kid-friendly video, and then suddenly in the middle of that video, this a parent told me this. In the middle of the video, you'll be interrupted by an ad, and this ad is actually inserted in by a scammer or some predator, child predator. Yeah, and then he'll say things like, "Oh, kid, hi, listen to me, blah blah blah." Then it will resume back to the original video. So the parent, if
Mm,
they're not attentive, they have no clue what has gone on. But the kid already
mm,
has been infected, so to speak. Mm.
mm,
Yeah, so
True.
it's a very dangerous world out there digitally.
True.
Yeah.
And Lee, as we are coming to the end of our podcast, I want to ask
mhm,
this question, and like I was like very much excited also to ask this thing from the
mhm,
very starting. That like me especially and our viewers would love to know about your journey and what's inspired you to start Kids Startup.
Mm.
And if you can, yeah, and if you can tell something about that and how it is creating an impact on children, so would be love to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, this is like one of the, like I mentioned, I think really appreciate, having me on this podcast and talk about, this topic on future of work and education, because it's something that is very dear to my heart. And so the reason why I started Kickstarter is actually from my, personal experience. So it's my personal experience and journey that led me to start Kickstarter. So, fun fact, I actually grew up in a boarding school alone on my own when I was 12 years old. So that journey, I was forced to be independent. And so I remember during that time I wasn't a top performing student, and I always let academic result define who I am as a person. And for the longest time I was unhappy, and I really felt like I was a failure, until one day I got this revelation from my dad, and he told me that, what, the world is out there, so what if you can't perform well academically, right? It's not the end of the world. And that became just one sentence, just one phrase, but it became like, the motivation behind what I do. So I began to ask myself, look, so what am I interested about? What is my passion? What do I value? And that's where I started to, ask all that question. And in a way, I would call, that is my self-discovery journey. So I'm fortunate, that I get to start that self-discovery journey at the age of 14. Right. So, and the reason why I started Kickstarter, it's also because I think I'm really fortunate to be born in a family of educators as well as entrepreneurs. So I feel like since young, I was exposed to the best of both worlds, right? And that made me who I am. So one day I was just thinking to myself that, if I have the privilege to be exposed to this environment, then what stops other kids from all over the world to have the same exposure, right? Your past doesn't define who you are. So if you're, for example, for instance, if your parents are employed, it doesn't mean that you have to be employed, right? It's all about providing yourself an alternative pathway. Do what makes you excited. Do what you are passionate about. So that is what I really wanted to start Kickstarter, to really empower the next generation in developing the entrepreneurial mindset and skill set to really help them to navigate their future.
I guess it's a very inspiring actually journey, that how you started off and the way you used to think. And I guess when I personally look at myself from, since, like in my childhood, I was not a very big, kind of a scholar student. I was also, very average student. And I guess I also shared that story in one of the my solo podcast that, I
Mm,
also used to get bullied when I was in school. And I guess that same stories also, which also reflects with Ryan, that the same things happened with, the all three of us which who are sitting today over here. And I guess that was the best thing which happened in our lives, so that's why we are doing such things. And the kids who were the topper in the class, I guess they are like somewhere doing jobs in some big organization. And I guess we
mm,
have given that chance by the God that go into the community, do something for the society. And I guess that's the very biggest thing what we can do as a person.
mm,
And I'm actually
Mm.
very much proud on that part. And I'm also like hats off to you also, Lee and Ryan, that you guys are doing such a wonderful job over there at your place. And I guess God have planned for everyone. And I guess this
mm,
is the plan what we they actually set for us. So I guess I feel lucky on and blessed on that front. And
mm.
today, as we are also doing this podcast, I guess that was also written somewhere that these three of us will be sitting together and discussing on the future of work.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how, because like for me, I only came into contact with entrepreneurship in my 20s, right? For
Mm,
Seating is already in when you're 14 years old.
13, yeah.
Yes. So you see, I think 6 years of head start from us. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do so much in 6 years, and now we look at the next generation. If they start from a very
Mm,
early age, wow!
mm,
Imagine what they can do. Yeah.
mm,
Mm. Of course, I think this is also necessary. It's no longer a luxury but a necessity because the world
yeah.
will get more complex. We'll have our fair share
Mm,
of black swans, grey rhinos, elephants in the
mm,
room. All these problems we need to tackle. So I think I'll say we also have to be urgent about this lah, to educate our young ones to be aware and yeah, really take ownership of their lives. Otherwise,
mm,
this will translate into societal problems in the future. You know, like
mm.
demotivated adults, and then yeah, we all know what happens next. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, but like thank you, Lee, for like coming up today and accepting this thing and coming being a part of our podcast episode today and giving these insightful thoughts to our audience also. And
mm.
yeah, thank you very much. Like I'm not feeling any like right now I cannot. There are a lot of words. There are a lot to say, but not
Mm.
able to say that.
The emotions speak for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you
think
for
we'll
having
be
me.
yeah we'll be watching your post on LinkedIn with great interest. Mm,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
mm.
much. It has been a very fun chat, very interesting questions. And yeah, I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon.
Mm. No
Yeah, and I
problem.
guess I would also invite you to India so that Kickstarter can come to India.
Yes, I would love to visit India.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. See, we're doing
Because
our own
that
version of the India Singapore partnership with you.
Yeah.
Mm.
because I've already invited Ryan to India already. So
Oh,
because
Ryan,
he's
have you
my
went already?
Oh, not yet.
no,
Yeah.
he'll
Oh,
be
okay,
coming
In
okay.
the
actually.
works planning. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. That'll be cool.
Mm.
Yeah. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot, guys. And I guess from this on this note, I guess we'll be signing off today. And thank you for being together with us today and giving so much love. And I guess we'll be getting this the same amount of love from your side in this way from a very long time. And thank you for watching us again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
See
Thank you.
you.
Thank you,
Bless you
Pranav. Thank
all.
you, Ryan. See
Thank you,
See
you.
Lee.
you.